Hi, welcome to the Libertarian Alternative. My name is Mark Selzer, and my co-host today is Angela Keaton. Thanks for coming out.
Oh, thank you, Mark.
And today we're going to be talking about the war in Iraq, and we're going to be speaking with former White House economist Joe Cobb. Now, Joe, what did you do in the White House?
I worked for an office in the Reagan White House, 1981 through 1983, called the Office of Policy Information. We helped to actually back up and underwrite the ideas that were important in Ronald Reagan's first term in president.
And we didn't succeed as much as we would like to. Because
unfortunately, the Democratic majority in Congress just struck down almost all of the initiatives that Reagan tried to put forward. And
then he had and then he ended up growing the government at about 8% a year, which was actually more than the Carter administration before him, and it was mostly on military spending, which is of course a good segue into our topic today, which is the war in Iraq. Military spending and foreign aid. I mean, this is, I often describe this war as doing foreign aid right. The Republicans, they say they don't like these programs, but instead of eliminating them when they get welfare and other things like that, what they do is they want to do them right. They want to do welfare right. They want to do foreign aid right. We want to do faith-based charity to teach morals, et cetera, to people instead of just giving them money. And we want to go into the foreign countries and get rid of their bad dictators and their bad systems, fix all their roads and their hospitals, then give them the money so that foreign aid will work. Do you see that as being what we're doing in Iraq?
The Republicans, as a political party, are very, very dishonest. Most Republican voters in the United States, I believe, would prefer smaller government, lower taxes, more services being done locally or in the private sector, but the National Republican Party is a party of big government. We think the Democrats are the party of big government. It just depends on who's got the presidency. That is the party of big government each time. The war in Iraq is an economic disaster for the American economy. It is draining our resources, it is draining our manpower, and it is pouring it into a part of the world where they do not want us there. And I have to ask, why do we want to be there? I think it's just a power trip on the part of George W. Bush and certain neoconservatives.
What are the long-term costs of actually being there economically? Well, I mean, we're not going to pull out anytime soon. How long do you think we're going to occupy Iraq?
Well, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Meyer, just recently said we should be there another 9 years.
Oh, God.
That's his prediction, not his request. The United States government is paying easily $200 billion a year for the war in Iraq.
Wow.
Congress just voted an $82 billion supplemental appropriation, and the underlying Defense Department budget, as well as the welfare that the State Department is pouring into Iraq, is just enormous. $200 billion a year is my estimate of the cost, and that's going to go on as far as the eye can see.
So that's almost $1 billion a week, or more than $1 billion a week?
It's about $4 billion a week.
Oh, wow.
And that's about, I can't get my digits together. Is that $400 a week for each American family?
Wow, so that's thousands of dollars more a year every year for the next 10, 20 years for each taxpayer.
And you're wondering why the American economy appears to be struggling. It's not a puzzle to me.
When I was a little girl, I was taught that you can't have both guns and butter. Long after we've pulled out, let's say we do.
What does that mean, guns and butter?
Guns and butter. I guess you can't have both a wartime economy and prosperity.
I see.
And well, after we pull out, there's still going to be long-term, I guess, externalities, do they call that?
Sure.
Years after. I mean, have we ever really finished paying off the last few wars?
No. As a matter of fact, the United States is still carrying some of the debt from World War II.
Wow.
Not to mention the Vietnam War, the Korean War, and now the mess in Iraq. The damage that a war system does for an economy can be permanent, because you're diverting massive amounts of resources that could be productively used to create things that people really want. New housing, new cars, new electronic equipment, new jobs. And you're diverting that into a fundamentally wasted effort in a foreign land where things are basically going to be blown up.
Right. So if I make a bunch of computers, those can create jobs in the U.S.
Yeah.
But if I make a tank and ship it overseas, that's it. I've lost that money. That tank goes over there, wrecks a bunch of stuff, costs a bunch of money, kills a bunch of people, and that's it. But if I make something that's here that can create jobs, it can continue to pay dividends into the future.
That's correct. And consider also, what are the consequences of sending that tank overseas? Do you make friends or do you make enemies?
Right.
This is what we've discovered. The high-minded slogans that we heard about how the Iraqi people would welcome Americans with open arms as liberators, the way the French did in 1945, is just totally wrong. We see that it's the American intervention in the economies and in the politics of foreign countries that makes the people in those foreign countries hate America.
Has there ever been in the history of the U.S., though, a situation where the U.S. has gone in and created a healthy, prospering economy by forcing it on someone?
No, I can't think of any. The closest we came was Canada, and that's because Canada beat us in the War of 1812.
Aha, so the key to the success is losing the war. The libertarians are opposed to big, bullying government, intrusive government, intervening in people's lives. And war seems to be the most expensive, most violent, most intervening thing that we can do. Now, this war seems to be especially expensive. Is there a reason now that this war is so much more expensive than was World War II or any of the other conflicts we've been in?
World War II was not cheap. World War II involved a lot more manpower. Modern war is more capital intensive. It uses more fancy equipment, more sophisticated aircraft and smart bombs. It's more expensive because the stuff that gets blown up is more expensive, but in some ways it's more efficient because it uses fewer people. But we've discovered in the time of this invasion of Iraq that the American armed forces are being strained to capacity. The Army has not met its recruiting quotas for the last 3 months. And so the military is beginning to rethink whether they really do want to have a draft. Now, a draft is slavery. There is no other word for it. Military service that's forced upon young people is slavery. And a libertarian is absolutely opposed to slavery in all of its forms. What's really horrible about any new future draft in the United States is that it will require drafting women. Now, you might think, oh no, how could that possibly happen? The answer is that under our Constitution, the way it has been politically correctly reinterpreted in the past 35, 40 years, requires that we treat all people equally. That means if you're going to draft young men, you're going to draft young women. But they won't put them in the military. They will put them into menial public service jobs. They'll use them in nursing homes. They'll use them in hospitals. This will be a mandatory 2 to 5 years of slavery for every young woman and every young man. Some of the young men will go into carrying guns. All of the young women will go into other forms of slavery.
Well, then there would be lawsuits regarding that as well, because women would demand, some women would demand combat roles, and there would probably be a lawsuit from both sides of the argument demanding total equality. One side wanting to bring about total equality, the other side wanting to not have total equality, so let's force it into an area where they probably won't want to go.
This shows you why coercion, slavery is such a stupid, stupid policy, because you're forcing people to do things they don't want to do in the first place, and so they'll fight back.
Right.
A volunteer army is an ideal way to defend your country, a free country. Let people volunteer who want to follow a military career. Let women do it. Let men do it. There's jobs for all of these people. The trouble is that the American military is now voting with its feet. People are now no longer wanting to enroll and sign up for the Army or the Marine Corps because they don't want to go and fight an unpopular and obviously wasteful war.
Now, this war, especially, the mentality of it, to me, seems to be that, let's say someone from a Muslim community in the United States, a Muslim area, came over and robbed a bank. and then we decided to bomb the Muslim neighborhood to teach those Muslims a lesson not to be robbing our banks. You know, that seems to be the mentality of this war. I mean, what did Iraq have to do with 9/11?
Well, the government of Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with the terrorist bombing of New York City. That has been well established. It has also been clearly established now, in retrospect, that there were never any weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And so the Republican President and the Republican Congress have now tried to redefine the problem as one of saying, we were trying to be humanitarians. We were trying to liberate the people. We thought they would throw flowers at us when we went in to give them the blessings of liberty. Of course, that's just more excuses made up for the most dramatic foreign policy mistake in the 21st century.
And on that, I'd like to thank you for coming out. And for anyone out there who would like any more information on the Libertarian Party, where should they go, Angela?
www.lp.org.
Or if you don't have one of those computer things, you can give us a call at 1-800-ELECT-US. And please, if you can register to vote as a Libertarian in your state, then next time you're waiting in line for an hour at the post office to buy one stamp, register to vote as a Libertarian. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. So now we'll
Don't give up, learn to live. Show the world you're painted in. The colors there are so deep and rich. Who could resist?